Welcome dear students. 25% iron each year is destroyed by the process of the corrosion. And this is a big loss for the iron industry. Now in this lecture, we will try to understand what is meant by corrosion and why do the metals corrode. First of all, what is corrosion? It is a process of chemical decay of metals due to action of the surrounding mediums. So the first thing to understand is that corrosion is a chemical process. It is a chemical change in the metal. It is not any physical change. And this corrosion is basically the decay of the metal due to action of the surrounding medium in which the metal is present. Now, my dear students, the metal may be in air and the gases in air, they will form a layer of the compounds on the surface of the metal, and these compounds are oxides, sulfides and carbonates. So basically the oxygen in the air, it forms a layer of oxide on the surface of metal. The sulfur oxides in the air, which are SO2 and SO3, they can form the layer of the sulfides on the surface of the metal, and similarly the carbon dioxide and other gases, they can form a layer of the carbonates on the surface of the metal. Now my dear students, when a metal is in contact with air, a layer of oxide, sulfide or carbonate is formed on its surface, and sometimes this layer protects the core of the metal from corrosion, as it becomes a protective layer on the surface of the metal. So we can say that if a metal is just in contact with the air, the surface of the metal is corroded, but the core of the metal remains intact because the protective layer of the oxides, sulfides and carbonates is produced on the surface of the metal. But if a metal is in contact with water, or it is present in an environment full of humidity and moisture, then my dear students, that water or moisture in the air, that dissolves these oxides, sulfides and carbonates. When the layers of oxides, sulfides and carbonates gets dissolved in water, then not only the surface of metal but the core of the metal is also corroded. And water is very important in promoting the different electrochemical reactions. So that's why the corrosion in the moist environment or in the presence of water, that is much faster process as compared to the corrosion in which the metal is present in the dry air or in the air having very less quantity or less amount of the moisture in it. That is why in the cities which are near to sea, you can easily observe that the cars or different portions that are made up of iron or any ore of the iron, they are easily corroded as compared to the cities where the sea is not nearby. So this was the corrosion of metal in the air and corrosion of metal with water. Obviously, you can easily understand that the corrosion with water is much more damaging and dangerous as compared to the corrosion in the dry air. Now the question is, why metals corrode? My dear students, this question can be answered by a theory which is called as the electrochemical theory. According to this theory, the pure metals, they do not corrode. If the metal is 100% pure, there will be no chances of the corrosion of the metal. Actually, these are the impurities present in the metal which promote corrosion. And how the impurities can promote corrosion? Let us understand this by having an example in which we have copper metal and aluminium metal in contact with each other. Suppose that our main metal is the aluminium metal and copper is an impurity which is present in the aluminium. Now, my dear students, when these two metals, they come in contact with each other in the moist air, then what happens? You know that the water in the air, that is ionized into H positive and OH negative ion, and similarly by the action of the CO2 and moisture in the air, carbonic acid is produced, and this carbonic acid gets ionized to H positive and bicarbonate HCO3 negative ions. It means these are the two metals which are in contact with each other, and they are present in an environment where H positive, OH negative and HCO3 negative ions are abundantly present. When these metals are present in this ionic environment, then an electrochemical cell develops between these metals, and that is why, due to the development of the electrochemical cell, then the one metal will get corroded while the other metal will remain intact. Now the question is, if the aluminium and copper are in direct contact with one another, which metal should corrode? This mystery lies in the electrochemical series. Keep one thing in your mind, my dear students. All those metals which are relatively in upper portion of the electrochemical series, they are highly reactive metals with the very low standard reduction potentials and very high value of the standard oxidation potentials. And those metals which are present at the bottom or below the SHE in the electrochemical series, they are very less reactive metals with very high reduction potentials and very low oxidation potentials. So according to electrochemical theory, when the two metals come in contact with one another, then the metal which is present on the upper portion of the electrochemical series as compared to the other metal, that gets corroded, because the metal which will be on higher position in the electrochemical series, that will be having high oxidation potential, it will be easily oxidized, and it will act as anode, while the metal which is relatively at the lower position in the electrochemical series, that metal is inert with very low oxidation potential, so that metal is not easily oxidized, and that metal will not easily get corroded. So conclusion is that the more reactive metal present in the relatively upper portion of the electrochemical series will get corroded, and the metal which is less reactive and relatively present at the lower part in the electrochemical series, that will not get corroded. In case of aluminium and copper, my dear students, you can see the electrochemical series. Aluminium is on upper position as compared to copper. It means if the aluminium has relatively high position in the electrochemical series, it is more reactive metal as compared to copper. It has more oxidation potential as compared to copper. It has low reduction potential as compared to the copper. So when aluminium and copper will get contact with each other, the aluminium being more reactive with low reduction potential and high oxidation potential will get corroded, and copper will remain intact. Now what happens? The aluminium atoms, they start losing electrons, and after losing electrons, they form tri-positive ions. Why the aluminium will lose electron and copper will not lose electron? Because the oxidation potential of aluminium is high, and the metal which has high oxidation potential has greater tendency to lose the electrons. So aluminium will be changed to its tri-positive ion. Now these tri-positive ion will combine with OH negative ions from water, and aluminium will be changed to, it will combine with OH negative, and finally aluminium hydroxide is produced, and aluminium will get corroded and will get dissolved in the form of the AlOH thrice. So the chemical decay of the aluminium starts, and we will say that aluminium starts corroding and it is dissolved in the form of aluminium hydroxide. On the other hand, these three electrons which are lost by the aluminium, they will travel to copper, and on the surface of the copper there will be hydrogen ions, and these hydrogen ions, they will gain these three electrons, and obviously they will be changed to hydrogen gas. So finally, aluminium will be oxidized, it will be dissolved in the form of aluminium hydroxide, and it will get corroded, its chemical decay will start. But as far as the copper is concerned, the copper is not oxidized, rather on the surface of the copper, the hydrogen ions are reduced and hydrogen gas is produced, so copper will remain intact. The overall chemical reaction, that will be aluminium plus 3OH negative plus 3H positive they form H2 gas. In order to balance the equation, we will write down as 3 by 2 H2 gas plus aluminium hydroxide. There will be loss of 3 electrons and gain of the 3 electrons, so they will be balanced. And in this way, this one will be the overall chemical reaction in that electrochemical cell, because aluminium is being oxidized. Aluminium changes from 0 to plus 3. So aluminium gets oxidized, and the one which gets oxidized acts as anode. So in this electrochemical cell, aluminium is acting as anode, while the copper, that will act as cathode. Why? Because on copper, reduction reaction is taking place. So that electrode on which reduction takes place, that will act as cathode. In this electrochemical cell, aluminium is anode and copper is cathode. And my dear students, keep one thing in your mind, that the metal which is more reactive, which is in the relatively upper portion of the electrochemical series, which has low reduction potential and high oxidation potential, always acts as anode in the electrochemical cells, and that metal actually gets corroded. While the metal which is relatively at the lower position in the electrochemical series has high reduction potential, low oxidation potential, that is basically an inert metal, and in electrochemical cells that acts as anode. And because that acts as cathode, sorry, and because corrosion is an oxidation process, so that is why the anode always gets corroded. So this was the explanation by the electrochemical theory based on the electrochemical series, which is also called as the metal reactivity series. Now, my dear students, to prevent any metal from corrosion, there are different methods, but the simplest method is that coat the surface of the metal. If you will place a protective coating on the surface of the metal, then its corrosion can be delayed, or its corrosion can be slowed down. And this protective layer will be either of the oil or some varnish or paint. So that is why you can observe at your homes that all the doors, they are painted, especially the doors that are made up of the steel or iron. They are basically painted to prevent the or to slow down the process of the corrosion. So this was all about what is corrosion and why do metals corrode. If you feel any problem, don't hesitate to ask in the comment section. I will be there to help you out. Till then, take care.